You're listening to the Savoir Faire Audio Experience.
Are you ready?
The Savoir Faire Experience is your guide to everything that has to do with lifestyle. From dating, rides, style, and entertainment. All brought to you by the editor of Savoir Faire magazine, Robert White. Anything goes on this audio experience. So, let's go.
It's still the best.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Savoir Faire Audio Experience. I appreciate you guys following and sharing and connecting with us. We really appreciate that. As usual, bringing you another great interview with a really talented actor, and I'm really excited to kind of talk with this person and give you guys some perspective on things. So, Norm Lewis, how you doing, Norm?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, doing excellent. The sun is shining. It's nice weather in New York finally, so I think we're we're getting a little more pep in our step around here.
Exactly.
Yeah, very cool.
Love it.
Well, Norm's got a lot of cool projects going on, and one thing that you're working on right now is that you're part of the cast of a play called Ceremonies and Dark Old Men, and I definitely want to talk with you about that, but I want to introduce you to my audience a little bit through some other Q&A stuff here. So if you wouldn't mind, I always kind of like people that really kind of have great status and have very success in their career like you have. I always like to learn a little bit about who they were before that success came, and so I'm curious about your upbringing, where you grew up, and just guide me through your process of when theater became part of your life.
Oh, okay. I'll try to make it really short because it could be a long novel. But I grew up in a small town called Eatonville, Florida, which is right outside of Orlando. And we have the honor of being the first Black chartered municipality in the United States. There were older Black communities, but we were the first to charter, with the government and everything. And that was back in 1887. Zora Neale Hurston is from Eatonville, and she wrote Their Eyes Were Watching God. And for those sports enthusiasts, you might know a guy named Deacon Jones, who was a LA Ram for a long time, and he's also from Eatonville. So we're proud of our little city. Had a great childhood there. I grew up in the church. My dad was really high in the church, and he was a deacon. My grandfather was a preacher. And so that was the base of my growing up. We basically lived in church, and I started singing in the choir, but no one ever gave me accolades for my singing. It was just a rite of passage, basically. And it took me until I was 16 years old, halfway through my junior year of high school, in order to find that voice, if you will. Up until that point, I was a tennis player, and I wanted to be a professional tennis player, but those dreams went away. But I found this new love of singing, and it just kind of kept blossoming from there. But it was always a hobby. Never thought of myself as going into this business. And later on, I worked, after college, worked in advertising for a newspaper, the Orlando Sentinel. And I would go to different contests and little events after work and sing somewhere. Sometimes I win some money or I'd win a prize or something like that. Or people would ask me to sing at their weddings and things like that. So someone discovered me at a contest and offered me a job on a cruise ship, the Big Red Boat. It was the Disney boat before Disney got their own line. And I worked on that for about 4 months and decided, you know what, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And I moved to New York, and here I am 36 years later.
Oh, that's so cool. I mean, obviously, I've listened to some of the things that you've been a part of. So you have an excellent singing voice. So clearly a lot of people saw that kind of talent in you, but you still kind of were really recognized as an actor and a Broadway, actor, and so to speak. So singing is just kind of adapted to that. I mean, are some of the roles that have you always done the kind of the musical route?
Yeah, that's how I kind of got myself into the business. It was through the fact that I could sing and did a lot of musicals. And in fact, this is only my third play here in New York, doing Ceremonies and Dark Old Men. I got to do Chicken and Biscuits on Broadway for the limited time that it was running. And then I got to do a Soldier's Play on tour a couple of years ago. And so this was my third incarnation of a play. Mostly, musicals last longer. They pay a lot more money. and so I just kind of I fell into that musical theater world. Most of the non-musical things that I've done have been on television or film.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I've seen some of that work that you've done too. I was looking at some of that stuff. So there was Defy Bloods. That was a pretty good one. I was splashed around on that one a little bit
Yeah,
today. You
yeah.
did some art department stuff with Stand By Me, which is like a classic, great movie. Like, thank you for being part of my childhood. I guess you worked
Right.
on Sex and the City, Les Miserables. I mean, your resume is really strong. You've definitely done a ton of great stuff. Talking more about the Broadway kind of stuff, though. I mean, you went from Florida being a singer with people recognizing you, got on this ship, and then from there just came to New York. How did you put the stepping stones together for me? So you can't just show up to New York and become who you are. So what kind of things kind of lined up for you in the very beginning to kind of make that stuff work out?
Well, I think I should go back to the cruise for just one quick second, just because
Sure.
the guy, I was very green, very green. And when I got the job, and the people that I met on the ship were professionals. They had been in the business for a while. Some have been on Broadway, things like that. And I just got encouraged by them. I was going to go back to school after that cruise ship gig because I was inspired by them. And one of the guys in the show said, why? Why are you going to go back to college? Just go to New York. He said, you can find teachers and study up there instead of waiting 2 years to get a degree and then move. And so he was the one that encouraged me to move up here. And I just went for everything. He gave me some words that I actually use a lot when I do master classes. When you walk into a room for an audition, the people behind that desk, the director, the producer, the choreographer, they all have a problem. And what you do is when you walk in, you basically just tell them through your eyes, I'm your solution. And you might not be the answer that day, but maybe you can go and answer as many of those problems as you can. Just go to everything. Just show up. And I specifically, in the early days when you only did 16 bars, I basically said to myself, unless they're specifically asking for blonde hair and blue eyes, I'm going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That's awesome, because I can relate to that a little bit just from being in marketing and sales and stuff in my background. It's really the same thing. I mean, you really are just kind of putting yourself out there to expose yourself as much as possible to get as many opportunities as possible. So that was just a really good hustle you had when you first came to New York. Yeah, just being able to connect with everybody. That's super cool. I'm always curious about the craft of kind of your how you get to that level. When I think about I'll play and obviously a musical and things like that. I think about, like, from an artist perspective, how much you really have to, like, memorize and really kind of get down. And so I'm curious about that process for you. I mean, obviously the songs kind of can adapt. You can kind of, I think, memorizing songs and moments is cool, but like with the lines and everything kind of put together, what is your true process as an artist to kind of break some of that down? Give me a little taste of your master class here.
Well, when it comes to a musical, you're right. I mean, you're in. What's so interesting about that? The challenge of that is that you're structured in a meter, so you have to follow whatever that meter is within the actual song itself, and you have a limited amount of time to get that message across or tell that story. In a play, it could be musical, in the sense of the way that like Shakespeare has that iambic pentameter sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and that's very musicalized, if you will. In this show, actually, there's a lot of what I would say call a poetic sort of license when it comes to the way you speak the language, the cater, and the way that you present it. But I think you have a lot more freedom in this. You can take more time in certain moments. You might feel a certain way one day, and you might just think about what someone just said to you or what you just said on stage. It just depends on how you feel. Where a musical, I think you kind of have, you're pretty constrained to whatever that song is giving you as a dancer or a singer. As far as memorization, it's just going over and over and over and over. I mean, that's what rehearsing is all about. And what I've learned, someone gave me this that was so obvious. He's like, when you rehearse something, you rehear it. So you just rehear it. And it's just like playing tennis or playing a baseball, game or a basketball. You go and you shoot for hours. You hit a ball in baseball for hours, or tennis for hours, in order to get it right, to perfect it. And that's what you do with this.
Do you find that like there's little cues for you? Like, so, you're kind of acting out a scene, and if there's a line that maybe slips or something, you know you're in this scene, so you can pull from that memorization aspect?
Oh, absolutely. As long as you know what the storyline is. I mean, I've done it myself where you might forget a word or two or three, but you know the way that the story is supposed to go, and without, you try not to write your own story. You try to do the words that the author has given you. But if you get tangled, you know where to go, and sometimes you know what the actor that you're playing opposite with needs the cue. Like there's a cue that he might need in order for him to launch into what he needs to do. So as long as you know the story, that's why I read the play a lot. Like I read the entire play a lot, and then I'll go and do the show. I mean, even right now, I'll read the play just so I can be familiar with the trajectory of where it's going.
Oh, interesting.
But
so
I try
even
to,
sorry to
I
cut you
try to
off there.
say the word.
So even being active
ahead.
like you are right now, like in Ceremonies and Dark Old Men, you're still kind of reading the script on a daily basis, even though you've already been performing it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you just want to familiarize yourself with little nuances. And there might be something that could, like the other day, we had people talking back to us from the audience. That could throw you off. And you could, because you get into a rhythm sometimes with a show when you do it 8 times a week, or in our case, 4 times a week. And sometimes you rely on that rhythm of how the scene is working. But in an instant, something can throw you off, like a phone ringing, or someone, like, oh, don't do that kind of thing. Like we've had that in our show. And so you kind of have to stay focused and know where the story's going. Hopefully you remember your lines and you just keep going. So
No,
yeah,
that's
I try
cool.
to read it every day.
Yeah, that's a great advice, honestly. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people from my audience are New York based and looking at becoming actors or playing around with some of this ideas. And so I really appreciate you kind of opening up a little bit about your strategy and how some of this stuff works for you. I'm also curious a little bit about just being in on stage in front of an audience and compared to being on a set for a film potentially. What kind of, I mean, clearly there's a different environment because you're in front of a live audience, but it sounds like with this show, you guys are actually engaging with the audience too. So talk to me a little bit about those experiences and some of the stuff you've already kind of noticed that that people would find very unique or cool.
Well, you try to make it the same, but it is different. Yeah. There's nothing like a live audience. Just that visceral reaction that they have. And again, sometimes you could hear the reaction. You could see them crying, or, they might talk back to you like, oh no, like the other day I made a mistake we play checkers in the show, and we actually play a game, a real game. And I made a mistake on one of the moves that I knew would throw the other person off. So I had to make up a line, said, no, I didn't mean to do that, and try to take it back so that way that the game could continue on the right path. And in doing that, there were 2 women in the front row who said, well, you can't do that. So it was awesome for them to have that sort of reaction. And I had to ignore it because obviously I couldn't talk to them, but I it was just so funny. It was so funny, and I love those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Now, TV and film, you try to be as present as you are with a live audience, because you know that eventually it's going to be seen by an audience. But the camera is the only thing that's in there. So you just try to stay focused with the actor that you're working with, or even if it's a monologue, even if it's just by yourself, you just try to stay focused, and you I guess, internalize a lot more than you would on stage. On stage, you need to be a little bit more presentational, even though there could be some intimate moments or internalized moments. It has to get to the back of the house in a theater. Where on camera, all you have to do is just stare at the camera and just think about what you're saying, and the audience will get it.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's super cool. And I think again, thank you again for sharing that. So I'm just kind of imagining the difference in my own head because I don't have any acting background, but I've had other kind of case scenarios in my life where I could see some of the similarities and the differences that you're talking about. So I always assumed that like when you're in doing a featured film or you're kind of in that regard, it's very kind of more it's still structured. I don't want to take away from that. Very still structured, but like the idea that you're not performing live is okay. Yep, you made a mistake. Let's just do that again. And they record it and they get the perfect take and everything's
Right.
great. Compared to being on stage where like you have to improvise, like the chess move, obviously, or the checker move, where you have to kind of add something
Right.
in to kind of keep the show flowing and still be within a 2.5, 3 hour gap or something, right? So, I mean, that's kind of unique.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that
Oh,
makes a lot of
you
sense.
hit the nail on the head. Yeah, the show must go on. Yeah, where you do. I don't know if I would call it a luxury, but you do have the quote unquote luxury of for TV and film, you can repeat it. You can go, oh, I can. Oh, let me do that again, or something. So
Yeah, very cool. Well, I want to dive directly into this play that you're a part of right now. That's hanging out at what's the theater called again? It's St. Clements. Is that where you guys are at?
yes, yeah, it's called the Theater at St. Clement.
Okay, Theater St. Clements. So you're doing Ceremonies in Dark Old Men. I saw a brief video that I found on YouTube today that really kind of showed a little bit of the scenario of what this show's about. But if you could give me kind of the synopsis of what the play is about, and then we'll kind of dive into some of the topics there.
Well, it's about a family. It's basically a family drama, and it's a man who used to be a performer on the vaudeville stage, and he married this beautiful woman, had 3 kids, and he had an interesting life of being a performer for a while, and then all of a sudden his legs became it didn't work for him as well anymore, so he had to transition into a different career. And he decided to try the barbering thing and being someone who could cut hair. This was back in 1956, so there were limited amount of jobs that someone could get as an African American um, and still make a living and try to take care of the family and things like that. So this is in Harlem, 1956. He's a person that is a barber that's not successful at all. He hadn't really made too much progress with this. So, and he had his wife working for him, basically in the sense of she would go and find a job and she took care of the house. But she became ill and eventually passed away. So now it's the reality of what to do now, because he did have that comfort and that cushion of his wife bringing in income. The oldest daughter came home to help the mom out because she was dying, and then eventually took over the role as matriarch of the family and started working and taking care of the household. There are 2 sons that are trying to find their way, and I think that they have been influenced by watching their dad, not knowing what he was doing and trying to find himself. They're trying to find themselves, and it's a dynamic of, I see that within them, and I want the best for them because I know that they have so much potential, but they're not living up to whatever potential they have. And the daughter is the one that's just constant and is bringing the money in. She's fed up, and she's giving them an ultimatum of, we need to get jobs or get out of the house, because she's sick of it. But out of all those things, those negative things that are going on, there's a lot of love within the family. There's a lot of biting at each other and barking and telling each other off, or things like that. But there's still that undercurrent of love that flows through this entire family. And it's just the ups and downs of that. We find an opportunity. The oldest son, finds an opportunity to make money, but it's not necessarily a legal way to make money. And he convinces his dad to go that route. And it's the things that happen within that pursuit.
I see. That's very cool. I haven't heard about this play. I saw some of the stuff about like Denzel Washington was an actor in this same play years ago, correct? Like beginning of his thing. I mean, it's been around for a really long time. This is not a new play. It's a classic, if we want to say that.
Yeah. It was first. It was written in 1969, and it was, I think, presented in 69, and with the Negro Ensemble, and actually was nominated for Pulitzer. I think it got like first runner-up or whatever how that goes, that whole thing. But Yeah, Lawrence Fishburne did Washington. Billy D. Williams. There's been a lineage of people. Keith David was part of this. So there's been an amazing lineage of people who've done this show, and I'm just glad to be a part of this legacy that's going on with it now.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just going to ask you, is this kind of one of those kind of pinch me moments when you get a role like this and you're in a play that has such great history and so many great actors and have been a part of this in the past? Like, is there a little bit of a, where you just have to sit back and kind of like take it in for a second?
Absolutely. Like you, I'd never heard it before it was offered to me. And doing a deep dive, finding out all the people that have been a part of this and the history of the Pulitzer and the Negro Ensemble aspect of it, it was like, oh, wow, yes, I'm glad to have been blessed to have this come across my world. And I just hope I do it justice, for one, and, pay homage to the people who created it. And I'm glad to be part of this amazing cast and the producers who are putting it on right now, the Peccadillo Company and Negro Ensemble, and just everyone that's involved with this. I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's very cool. So talk to me a little bit about this kind of like the cultural aspect of this play. What are you seeing from the audience, and what kind of reactions and feedback are you hearing from people that are seeing it?
It's been great. We've had different people from different backgrounds and cultures that have come to see it, and they love it for the written word of it, and just the play itself, the structure of it. But then the execution and just the story behind it, they love the fact that they know someone who is like this. It's either someone in their family or family friend, or they know a family like this. And even though it's told through African-American eyes, it's a very universal type show, and people can relate to it. And the reaction has been fantastic. We've had full houses since we started, and I think people are asking if it's going to go longer. I know we end May 18th, but we're hoping that there could be, I'm not sure if there can be an extension or just another incarnation of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what days of the week can people come and see you? I'm curious about that too.
Yeah, it's Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday matinee.
Okay, awesome. Well, Norm, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to chit-chat with me, talk to me a little bit about Ceremonies in the Dark Old Man, and I really kind of appreciate some of the tips you gave from the masterclass perspective and letting us into your world a little bit. It's really good. I mean, I always respect people for the standard that they've set in an industry, and I think you set yours extremely high, which is great. And I love hearing that your hustle was there even from the early parts of your career, and it still is, and that's extremely rare and very unique. So I continue to wish you great success in everything that you touch. And thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely. And I take that blessing. And I appreciate people like you who celebrate what we do and love the theater and just continue to support us in that regard. Cause, with this new world that we are living in right now, things are a little scary. So, we appreciate people like you continuing the fight for us.
Yeah, I would definitely encourage anyone that's in New York City or even traveling there, which is a consistent place for travelers, to look up the information about this and go see the play. Give Norm a good round of applause. Well deserved for sure. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Take care, my friend.
Thank you for listening to the show. Please take a minute to head over to www.savfair.com and subscribe to our publication.